Hi, I'm Adam Purnell, Shropshire lad. Welcome to the Festival of Imagination's virtual version this year. It's a real shame that I can't be there with you live doing this, but this is the next best thing. I'm still super excited about what we're going to cook today. I've got a beautiful fish stew that we're going to make with a little bit of spice. We're getting to that time of year now where you kind of want to have something a little bit stodgy, but the weather's still gorgeous today, so we're kind of in that in-between stage. I think this is going to tick all the boxes for that. What an amazing setting this is to be in as well. Just check out that view, got the gorge behind us, the bridge right there. So massive thanks to Vic Haddock Canoe Hire for letting us cook here today. It's possibly the nicest setting I've ever cooked in. It's incredible. So to get started, we're going to make a spicy rice with a fish stock. And to make that, we've got these beautiful sea bass and we've got a pan of water ticking away on the kadai over here. So what we need to do is we need to take the fillets off these, which we're going to cook on the actual fire, and use the bones and the heads to make the stock. So just need to fillet the fish. So in order to do that, just going to take a line along the top of the gill plate, and then the top of the knife just goes in, and it really helps if your knives are sharper than mine. But there we go. This is real life, and it's busy, and I haven't sharpened them for a while. But it's running along the spine there. So just putting some pressure on the fish now so I can feel the bone as the knife glides down. So open that up like that now, away from the bone, and then I'm just going to use the knife to gently tease the other half of that fillet all the way down. Okay, and we've got a beautiful fillet there. Just going to clean that up, just cut those edges off. That can all go, that's all flavour, so don't throw that away. That can go into the pot. Okay, so that's one. We're going to repeat that. I've got two of these. So we'll do both fish. This is the wonderful thing about if you can learn how to fillet a fish, or even if you speak to your fishmonger and get a whole fish, you get, all this waste, which you pay somebody to do this, but actually all that flavour that's in there to make this fish stock is going to be what sets this rice alight. It's going to be incredible because of the stock. You can't easily buy decent fish stock. These days, beef stock and chicken stock, you can get decent ones, fish stock not so much. So either learn or ask your fishmonger for the bones. So I've got my 4 fillets there. I'm going to take the leftovers, the head and the bones. I'm going to drop these into this bowl. They're just going to poach away. You don't want this to be too ferocious. If you're doing it, you can do this in the house. Just make sure you've got it just simmering, okay? And the beautiful thing about a fish stock is it only takes about 20 minutes, whereas if you're cooking a beef stock or a chicken stock, you might want to cook it for hours. 20 minutes, this is going to be good to go. So, in they go. I've got my 4 sea bass fillets there. I've also got these beautiful red mullet fillets as well. So, this is kind of going to be a Caribbean-inspired fish stew. And often in the Caribbean they use red snapper, but we've got red mullet, which is very, very similar, and it's local, it's close. All these fish we're using, you find in the British Isles. Langoustines, these little babies, absolutely gorgeous. 90% of these get sent all the way to Spain, but they all come from Scotland, and we hardly eat them. So it's really, really important to think about the fish selection that you're using. Try and use stuff that's not come from the other side of the world. Support our local fishermen, but also, think about the air miles as well. This is all local stuff. We're landlocked here in Shropshire, let's be honest, but as local to the UK as possible. Okay, so we've got our fillets there. I'm going to, because we've got a few portions to make, I'm going to cut them all in half. Here. Just to put, because these are all going to be little portions, and they're going to get smoked in a little while. But before we smoke them, and once we've filleted them up and portioned them up, we're going to give them a little bit of salt. That's going to draw out some of the moisture, and by drawing out the moisture, we manage to get more flavour. And that's the same with a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So in a moment, I'm going to show you how we're going to do that with the onions as well. So once we've got our fillets there, I'm going to hit them with some sea salt. So plenty of salt over the top of those guys. And then the board can just sit over that bowl of ice and langoustines until we're ready to use it. So that can sit to one side. Right, so now whilst I'm talking to you about pulling the moisture out of things to make them more intense, intensify flavours, that's exactly what we're going to do with these red onions. What we're going to do is pull the middle of this bowl out so I can access these coals, and these red onions are just literally going to go in the fire, into the hot coals, and I'm going to let them tick away, turning them occasionally until they're all black and gnarly on the outside, and I can start to see the juices fizzing out the top. When the juices start to fizz out at the top of these, that's when we know they're ready. Let them cool, pull the skin back, and then these are going to form the base of our stew, which is going to bring loads and loads of extra flavour, the flavours and the notes of this charcoal. This is beautiful local charcoal that we're using, and the smoky flavours will come through so well, and the sweetness of these onions is really, really going to help in that stew as well. Put that back in there. Okay, so we're going to finish the fish stock now. So we have the celery. Probably 2 sticks of celery will be enough. Just going to rough chop those. So they can go in. An onion, or maybe 2 onions. I'm going to just, you don't even need to worry about peeling them because they're only going into a stock. Just peel the outside, maybe the major leaves, but don't spend loads of time peeling them. And then they can go straight into the bowl as well. There we go. And the second one. Okay, so onions are in, and then really, really importantly, you need a couple of bay leaves. So we've got those here. Hope Vic doesn't mind me using these. I'm sure he won't. I actually forgot to bring my bay leaves, so I was quite pleased to see them growing right behind me. The good old garden, that, have you got a bay tree? Save you a fortune, about £3 for a packet of bay leaves, or just grow your own. Perfect, so that's just simmering away. I'm really, really happy with that. So now, we're going to move on to thinking about getting some of the other vegetables prepped for the stew. So again, talking about seasonal, talking about local, something that's in abundance at the moment is corn, okay? So if you can get it in the husks like this, it's so much better than when you buy it in the supermarket. Obviously you've got the plastic and everything, but normally even in the supermarkets you'll find these are loose, and that means you're not having the plastic, but they have their own protective layer around them, which not only means that we don't have to have that plastic, but it means that the corn at the moment is absolutely to die for. And if you cook it over the fire, it's just incredible. It really, really is. So just peel those back, give it a twist, get rid of that. Okay. So we're going to take the second one of these, and this board's going to get a little bit messy in a minute because we're going to season them up directly on the board. Okay. So, got our 2 corn on the cob ready to go. Now, I've got a little bit of a spice mix here, which is actually going to be used throughout all of these dishes, and because they're used in such different ways, you won't necessarily notice it's just one spice blend, that's all you're going to need. I've put it all into one bowl because I've got such random pots of spices and stuff, it would have taken the table up. So, put it all in here. But basically what we have is smoked paprika, which is one of my favourite spices. It's going to give loads of depth and strength to this the sauce. A little bit of cinnamon, don't go too mad with that. So there's probably a teaspoon of smoked paprika, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of allspice, which is a Caribbean favourite, and because we're going to have a sort of Caribbean twist on this this dish, that is where that's going to come from. Some thyme, you find a lot in Caribbean food as well. Dried thyme is perfect. It gives a slightly earthy undertone to this, and it's a brilliant spice. And then black and white pepper, because they both bring 2 very different flavours. White pepper and fish are best friends. So all those are there. I'm just going to mix that up in the bowl to make my very own rub/spice blend. And I use this on so many things, but pork and fish are my favourites for this one. So I've got my spice blend there. Now I've got some, again, I pretty much exclusively use rapeseed oil now. Again, it's grown down the road, you know, it's not flown in here from, you know, like your olive oil or wherever else. It's not flown in from the other side of the world. It's British, so we're using that. So we're just going to give those a little drizzle of rapeseed oil, a hit of salt, sea salt, and then we're going to give them, as I turn them, a little sprinkle of my spice mix as well. Not too much, just to enhance the flavours. The corn sings all for itself, to be quite honest. It doesn't really need a great deal more, but just a little kick from the spice always helps. So I'm just going to rub those into the board now, get every last little bit up there, and we're just going to get those charred up over the coals. Now I'm going to see what's going on with these onions. Looks like they're starting to blacken, so you'll see that's coming along perfectly. So just going to turn those over 90 degrees and start again on the other side. Woo! Some heat coming off this, I tell you. So you'll also notice how I've set up my fire here. It's really, really warm. If I'd have filled this whole thing with fire, then if I have any flare-ups or there's points in this cooking where I need to have cooler spots, I'm not going to have that. So I always set up my fire so that it's really, really hot at one side, medium in the middle, and then there's absolutely nothing on the grill here so I can touch it with my hands. So I've got 3 different heat zones on here, okay? And that is really, really important. And I've obviously also set it up so that the coals are that side of the bowl because I'm standing this side and it's warm enough as it is. These big Indian cooking bowls are Kadai fire bowls. They're also a Shropshire company, made just in, well, they are based just in Church Stretton, actually made out in India. They used to be used in India to cook food inside of. So the food would be in here and the fire would be underneath years and years ago. But now these guys have taken on bringing them over here and turning them into these awesome fire bowls. I've got all these different accessories you can cook on. One of my favourite ways to cook. It's so much fun standing around this, and you can stoke it up afterwards, have a few beers and have a fire around it afterwards. So highly recommend looking at Kadai fire bowls. Right, I'm just going to turn these corn. I'm just going to keep those moving. I want all of those kernels to start charring, and every single one that has a char is going to bring an extra little pop of flavour into this stew at the end. Right, next thing, peppers. And as it's a Caribbean style, we've gone for red, gold and green, always. So we're going to char those up on the grill as well. And we also have some courgettes. It's probably just about the end of the courgette seasons. These are the last few out of my friend's garden. These are really, really great to use. Often people say, oh, I've grown all these courgettes, I don't know what to do with them. Cook them on the barbecue and treat them almost like a steak. So I literally am just gonna, a lot of people cut them into discs, yeah, and then you're messing around trying to keep them on the grill, they're falling through the grill, absolute nightmare. Don't want to do that. So straight down the middle, like so, okay, you can just cook them like that, and then you chop them up afterwards once they're cooked. So much easier. So again, straight down the middle, all 3. And then exactly the same treatment as the corn. So we're going to go on the board, drizzle of oil. We're going to go in with a little bit of spice mix, not too much because we're going to get more going through the dish. And again, salt. And once again, we're just going to marinate those on the board, make sure they're all covered. I'm a pretty messy cook. It's not much fun cleaning up after me, but I have loads of fun making the mess, so. And generally, if you cook, you don't have to wash up, right? It's me being really inconsiderate. Very sorry. Okay, drop these on here. So we're going to go for the sliced side down first. If you place them along the grill, rather than with the grill, then you'll get those wicked little char lines all the way along them. It just looks super cool. It's all about it looking tasty too. Even though if you put them the other way, it would cook absolutely perfectly fine. Right, so we'll just have a little look at these That's just starting to char up now. That's lovely. We do it a little bit longer, but it's good to turn them fairly regularly so that you don't let them go over. Undercooked is always better than overcooked. You can always leave them on for a bit longer, but once they're overdone, there's no coming back. And we're just starting to see this stock is just, I can see the colour of this now is changing and the flavours are coming together. The fish is poached, starting to fall apart. That is a really good sign that that stock is almost ready to use. So we're just getting to get these vegetables turned. There we go, that's a lovely bit of charring on that pepper. Just what we want, that one. This is the thing about cooking with coals. The coals are still light in here, so we just have to keep moving things around. You have hot spots, cold spots. It's not the same as cooking in your house. You just get used to sort of playing around with where the hot spots are. I'm actually going to move those off that middle section so I can take it out and turn these onions again. Because then we can get this rice started. So just pop those out. Another turn of the onions. They're doing just fine. Woo! God, it's warm in there. Okay. Now you'll see that's starting to fizz there, and that's what I'm talking about. That's where we're concentrating the flavour. We're getting all of the juices, all the water in that onion out, but the sugars will remain, and that makes it super sweet and delicious. It's exactly what we want. They're all starting to fizz now, which is fantastic news. So it's time to think about cooking some rice. I'm going to take my little paella pan. That's going to go in the middle there. Going to hit the pan with a little oil and also a little butter. And the butter, as it melts, when the butter melts with the oil, it's not going to burn because the oil stops it from burning. If you just put butter in the pan, it'll end up going brown and then black, and then that's not what you want. But we're going to use paella rice today. I've got 400 grams of paella rice, and as soon as that is ready and fizzing, we're going to fry the rice off a little bit. Okay, then we're going to add some of this wicked seasoning that we made, and then it'll just be a case of a ladle at a time. We're going to use that fish stock just to keep adding layers and layers, more and more flavour into that rice, and we'll get this beautiful fishy spicy rice that's going to go alongside our stew. Just going to have to wait for a minute until that heats up. Get my spoon for that. So can you see real close in it now, can you? Right, yeah, just sort of say. We're looking at the fizz of the. Yeah, say it's just, we can see that the butter's just starting to melt now. You can see that it's getting a little bit dancing around, the fat's dancing in there. It's ready for that rice. So we're going to go 400 grams of this. Just didn't have a big enough bowl to put 400 grams in one, so we've got 2 bowls. And then just going to work that fat into the rice so all the grains are covered, and we start to sort of fry it. Cooking it in this way, and I've chosen to use this kind of rice because we've got a lot of stock there, but we'll cook an awful lot of that stock away. And again, getting rid of the liquid will leave the flavour behind. So all the flavour that's in there now, that if you just tasted that, it's probably not going to be too strong. But obviously most of that water is going to evaporate as that rice cooks. But obviously the flavour doesn't evaporate, only the water evaporates. So it's how to add a lot of flavour into your pan and make that rice super tasty. Okay, I'm just going to let that fry away. And whilst I do that, we'll do another turn of the veggies. See, that's a nice bit of heat at the back there. I've got some nice grill marks on there, on here. Turn them over. Yeah, that's beautiful. Just what we want. Turning these over again. So this red one's catching up now because I moved him out of the cold spot. Got two sides there, which are charred. And these corns just ticking away nicely. I'm probably going to need to find a hotter spot for that corn, but there's no rush because we've got a little while before we're going to need that. I start to hear, I use my tongs for everything, but really you should use a spoon. And everyone's got their favourite spoon. Look at the state of my favourite spoon. I mean, this I've had, I don't know how long, but I can't get rid of it. It shakes in the thing, the plastic's split, but I just love it because it just feels good. You can scrape the bottom. So if you haven't got a favourite spoon, allocate yourself a favourite spoon. Feels good to know you've got a favourite spoon. Maybe I'm just going crazy. It's been a long week. But this is definitely my favourite spoon. Okay, so that is just, I can hear that rice is just starting to fizz. You don't want it to be like popping or anything at you. So I'm going to go in for about a teaspoon and a half of the spice mix now. This is going to give it like a sort of real depth of flavour. So work those spices in, and then once you're happy that they've kind of been completely saturated in the fat and they're starting to dance and all of their own natural oils are mixing in with the oils that we put in there, that's when we start to relieve it. Before the spices burn, that's when we start to add our stock, which will be coming in a moment. So, stock time. Where have I done? What have I done? There we go. So, I'm going to go in with a ladle of stock to start with. You may not use it all. See how that's evaporating almost straight away. Within a minute or two, we won't really have anything left. But all the flavour's left behind, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up these layers of flavour, that fish, all those spices. And add a little bit of salt as well. About a tablespoon of salt. There's quite a lot of rice there. This will fill the pan by the time we're finished. And it's a case of keeping it going. If you've made a risotto, this is very similar to making a risotto, only we're not going to be as complex as a risotto with this. This is going to be the side that's going to go with our stew. Second pan of water. And I don't want this to be going too quickly. It's just steadily ticking away. I'm really happy with how that's looking. And I reckon we might be ready to start lifting those veggies off now, and they can just rest because they're going to go back into the stew at the end. But we've got that charred flavour that we're looking for from cooking it over the coals there. So we add in the flavour, we've reduced the moisture. So this is what fire cooking does. This is how we can make things so much more tasty by cooking it over with fire. Okay, and that is a beautiful little hot spot for my corn, which is not cooking quite as quickly as I'd like to on the back here, but that's not a problem, we'll just move it. These two could just do with a little bit longer. And peppers are looking good. I'll have to move my rice out in a minute and see what's going on with those onions underneath. I reckon they might be close to coming out too. And they also need to be cool enough for me to handle. More stock. Just keep layering it up with the stock. The more you can get in there, the better. But just a little bit at a time. Don't try and add more than a ladle at a time. Let it evaporate, then do the next bit. Right, whilst that's going on, and these are just finishing off, I'm just going to prep some garlic. So we're going to go for 5 or 6 cloves of garlic, some ginger, which is unusual in fish stew if it's as we know it, but this has got a Caribbean twist, and ginger is massive. But the real big player in this, with the allspice, with the thyme, is these little bad boys. These are Scotch bonnet chilies. They're super, super hot, but they've got such a unique flavour that you don't find in any other chili, and it's essential in Caribbean food. It's, you know, this is where it's at. So we're going to get those bits ready, these are going to go into the stew, not the rice, but we're going to get everything prepped as the last of this, as this finishes off, so that we're ready to go in and start cooking that stew. So with the garlic, just take the blade of your knife and just on its side, pop it, pop it, pop it. Now the crushing obviously enhances some of the flavour, releases some of the flavour, but it also means that peeling it is really easy. So it's two birds with one stone. I never use a garlic crusher, just use the side of your knife, because you have to clean it all out and it's a pain. And yeah, garlic crushers are just the nemesis. I can't stand them. You don't need them. It's important to remember that whilst you're concentrating on this, everything's still cooking over there. So I'm going to stop there and just give it a little stir. I think we're almost ready for another ladle of stock. Now I'm getting this rice cooked ahead of time because rice always benefits from a little rest once it's cooked as well. So we're going to have this prepped in front of everything else. Mix that in, another ladle of stock. Oop, trying not to get the celery in there, we don't want that. And mix it in again. There we go. This is starting to expand now, it's starting to take on some of those juices, get softer. It's lovely. Okay, back to this. So that can all be, just get the last bits of the rubbish out of there. And then just do what we call the seesaw method, chop it backwards and forwards. Oops, get any bits out. All my chef friends watching this, you know I haven't got any knife skills, so shh. Nobody else knows that. You probably can actually tell, even if you're not a chef, that I'm not a chef. I'm not a trained chef, you know, I was self-taught at home with my old man when I was a kid. I was sort of always cooking, and then he used to work late, so I used to cook my own dinner, and that's kind of how I got into cooking. And so I've never worked in a professional kitchen. Stomping around these parts, fishing and eating was how I grew up, really. So as long as you get the job done, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to take a knob of ginger, and this is a great little trick. Use the back of a teaspoon to peel it. People really struggle to peel ginger. Vic's going to love me with this all over his floor. I'll feed you, Vic, don't worry, mate. It's worth it. It's biodegradable. So, whoops. Peel your ginger with a spoon. Oops, gone everywhere, never mind. Well, I did warn you I'm a messy cook. And then just going to chop this up into, probably don't need all of that, to be honest. Just work that down there. That'll do, that's plenty. And then just chop that finely as well. Seesaw method, backwards and forwards. And once that job's done, we'll check that rice again. Needs another ladle. Starting to look good. Oops, just trying to miss the extras. You can always put it in and then just fish it out. Put it back into the pot. It's easier than bobbing around for ages. That's just starting to catch on the bottom of the pan. That's good. I actually love it with a paella, if you can get it so that you get a little bit of crispy rice on the bottom. That's the best bit. And because we've got that butter and the oil in there, it'll be like almost like a crunchy fried rice cake at the bottom when we finished it. And it's absolutely divine. Smelling really good now. Okay, just keep that ticking away. All right. That's bubbling away, lovely. Right, I'm gonna pull it to one side because I reckon my onions are ready to come out now. In fact, let me get this is a great little thing to have whenever you're cooking with fire, heat-proof gloves. Because if you do need to move something off, like I do right now, just gonna pop that on there. Is that gonna rest? Yes, it is. Then we can get this off. Use my really expensive Japanese knife to do this because I'm stupid like that. There's my tongs. Right, I'm going to get these out now because they are ready for it. So most people would say that looks like the charcoal that we're cooking on, but trust me, inside there is going to be something of real beauty that we're going to use. I'm just going to rest those on there. They need to just cool down to the point where I can actually handle them, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with those. But in the meantime, we'll just get everything else off as well, I think. I'm going to turn, ooh, see, even I burn stuff sometimes, but that's fine. It's going to be flavour. Left it too long. Never mind. The other side will be great. We all make mistakes, and that'll break down into something really, really tasty when we get it in that stew. These peppers are ready to come off too. So we've nearly got all of our veggies done now. Intensified flavours. Okay. Oh, I left 2 onions in there. Didn't notice them. Knock the coal off because I don't want to burn my beautiful board. Okay, excellent. Happy with that. So rice is going to go back on. I knew I needed the glove for something else. Whoops. Okay, rice can go back. And we're back to our prep. In fact, it's another ladle going in there before we do that. I'm going to go for 2 now because it's swallowing that up quite quickly. Just work that in. And I've moved it to a slightly cooler part of the grill now, so that can just tick away. I'm not in any rush for that to be finished now because we're nearly there. It's absorbed an awful lot of that liquid. It's coming nice and fluffy. That can just tick away on the edge of the barbecue now. Not a problem. Just going to need to keep an eye on these corn so that I don't burn the other side as well. Now they've got a little way to go. But what we can do is chop. I'm probably only going to use one of these Scotch bonnet chilies because I don't want to blow people's brains out. If it was me, I'd have 2, but you know, there's 1 or 2 people waiting to eat this. I don't want to make it unpleasant. So it's up to you guys how much you use of this. But I would recommend taking the seeds out. If you're going to touch the seeds like that, I definitely recommend you wash your hands before you go to the loo, and it can be quite nasty. It's happened to me once or twice. Or touch your face, rub your eyes. Don't do it because this is a hot, hot chili and it'll hurt you. Okay, so we've pretty much prepped now. Well, what we need to do is get this veg ready. So, with the peppers, I'm going to take the middle out, get rid of that. You don't want the seeds. Okay, oops, there's some seeds inside there. And they're really, really hot inside, but if you just open them up like that, see all that steam coming out of them? As soon as the steam's out, then they'll cool down really quickly and you'll be able to handle them. Same with this one, middle out. Open it up. Oh, hot. I feel like I need to sing Karma Chameleon here with this red, gold and green going on. I'm not going to though, because you'll probably turn off if you are still watching. Right, So the peppers are sorted. They're just going to need that black on the outside. We'll just scrape off. I'll show you that once they're able to be handled. Move that to one side. Just get rid of some of that black stuff. It's all good. This is dirty cooking. I'm just going to really loosely chop these up. These are all going to get, don't worry about these going cold, because they're all going to be put into the base of this fish curry. Sorry, fish stew. My bad. So they'll be heated back up again when that happens. Okay, so, oops, that's ready. I believe that these will now be good. Yeah, so they're perfectly charred. You've got super charred that side, not so much, but they are definitely cooked. So that's fine. So what you do with these is probably wait a little longer than I'm going to handle them, but I think they're okay. Yeah, I can handle that. And then you just slice straight down, cut all those kernels off. Woo, it's warm. Warm, 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 warm. Okay. So we're getting ready now to make this base. That's one lot of charred corn. See, it doesn't look so burnt now. Now it's all chopped up. You can see most of it's still absolutely fine underneath the skin. It's not a problem. Definitely wasn't worth throwing it away. Whew, this one's a little bit harder to handle. A little bit warm. Definitely recommend you wait a little bit longer than I have, but I've developed asbestos fingers over the last few years of doing this. So lots of sweet corn there. Corn is a big staple in the Caribbean as well. Lots of it. Okay, so we've got a pile of corn. Whew, warm. Okay, now onions just about ready to handle. So you can see the skin's on the outside there. All you need to do is give it a little squeeze, and inside you get this absolutely gorgeous cooked onion. We're just going to pop out. That's all we're going to use. Now onions are so cheap. Whole bag of onions in the supermarket is about 60p, so don't worry about throwing away the outer bits. Just use twice the amount you normally would. So I got 6 onions there, and I'll end up with the equivalent of 2 or 3 probably, but they're so awesome in there. That's honestly one of the sweetest things. We call these dirty onions because they've been cooked directly in the coals. They look dirty when you clean it. When you clean the skins off, they've still got bits, gnarly charredness on them. All adds to flavour, character. This isn't a la carte cooking, this is fire cooking. Okay. You see that I just touch these, and sometimes you can squeeze it and it'll just pop out like that. Boom. So easy. And if you hate peeling onions like me, it takes that job out as well. Whew. So nearly there with the onions. Whoop. I'm going to go for some more stock in here. What that is, a foreign object. Get rid of that. So as this cooks down and becomes closer to being cooked, you can add more and more of the stock. That's just starting to catch on the bottom, which is fine. I think that's probably the last amount of stock I'm going to need to put in there. And then it'll be able to come off the heat. Just going to work that in for a final time. And then I'm going to pull that back and just let it sit in that residual heat. Even less hot now than where it was before for the finishing absorption, if that's a word, of that stock. Now I've used most of the fish stock now, there's a little bit left, but what you can do is pull that off, strain it off, freeze it, and then you've got fish stock for next time if you don't end up buying a whole fish. That's looking great. In fact, I'm going to pull it over here to this side. Okay. Cool. All right. So, finish these onions. Woo-hoo-hoo. Hot. Let's get rid of some of the paper, burnt paper. As I say, don't worry too much about getting rid of all these black bits. It's going to give it loads of character and flavour. So these now, we're just going to peel the skins off very, very easily. And you've got lovely roasted peppers. You pay a fortune for those in a jar, but beautiful char grilled peppers. No black stuff, or very little. Whack that down. Same again. You get the idea. It doesn't matter if you leave a bit of skin on. I'm so lazy with stuff like this. There's no need to be spending your life peeling things when you can burn stuff off. Peeling peppers would be a nightmare. Right. Okay, so we've just got that. And now literally, you don't need knife skills for this. So guess what, chef friends? I don't care, because all we're going to do is just hit that with the knife so that it all becomes rough and ready and pretty awesome. And those bits there are going to be the start of our stew. Because you always cook down your onions and peppers first and you're waiting there for ages for it to cook down. Well, we've done half the job over the fire and actually imported a whole load of flavour from that fire at the same time. Okay, so just going to give this rice a little stir. Right, that's going to completely come off the heat now. Can sit over here. It might even get to come over here in a second because I can heat it back up at the end. That rice is nicely done, creamy. I'm going to finish it with a bit of lime and some parsley at the end. But I'm pretty happy. I'm just going to give it a little taste. My God. Yeah, it's good rice. Okay, right. So that's going to come off. As I say, I can spruce it up with a little bit of the stock right at the end, but that can just rest over here now. And we can bring out the wok. I did have my own, I had to borrow one from here because unfortunately I've been really busy today and I forgot mine, but this will be absolutely fine. Just if you are going to use a wok like this with a plastic handle, just make sure the handle obviously isn't over the heat because it will melt. And if you touch a melted plastic handle, that's the end of your cooking. You're going to be going off A&E, so you don't want that. Okay, so just going to get the base of this going now. So we're going to start with a bit of oil in there. Let that get hot. In fact, I'm going to put it over that way so that it's definitely not over the heat. And into the pan, first of all, we'll go our onions and peppers. And also, at the same time, we can add our chilli, ginger, garlic. And because we've got all this in there, there's going to be moisture coming out of it. The spices are in no danger of burning. So the rest of these spices are also going to go in at this stage. And then we're just going to let that start to fizz. And I'm going to have to borrow this spoon. But that's fine. Start working all of that magic together. Just going to get that nice and hot. What I'm probably going to need to do here is just open up the bottom. This is about fire cooking. So this is about fire management. I need to increase the heat. I'm not going to add more fuel because there's loads of fuel in here. This doesn't need to cook anymore. So we're just going to take this out. I've actually got separate tongs for this, for moving the coals about. So all I need to do is move some coals from this side underneath. Oops. Underneath here, and then we're going to make sure that that becomes hotter. And instantly I can hear that starting to fizz. Okay. That's great. Oh, I shouldn't use that in there. That's the coal one. All adds to the flavour. Right. Break that big bit of pepper down. But that might be a little treat for somebody. They like pepper. So we're just going to get that going. Need to get it nice and hot. And then next up, we're going to get these langoustines ready. So, in fact, I'm going to take this out the way because I need a bit more room. take my stock off now. Nestle that amongst Vic's plants. Poke my eye out with this tropical plant there. Brilliant. I'm glad this isn't live. Okay, middle goes in. So these are awesome. This is a grill tray, so it's got holes in it. So these langoustines would have a danger of falling through the gaps on this grill here. But with this, they won't, because it's nice and fine. You could use a pizza tray, or, oh, look at all that garlic I just missed. Chuck that in as well. You could use a pizza tray, or you could use anything really with holes, but you can buy barbecue trays like this, and they're perfect for shellfish, because the shellfish just can't fall through. So I'm just going to grab my langoustines. Beautiful, beautiful Scottish langoustines. And we're just going to get a bit of a char on them. Now, it's really hard to impart flavour into something that's completely armoured like this, okay? Really difficult. So I don't tend to season them really, because you don't get much of the seasoning in to the langoustine itself. But what you can do is get smoke into it. And so you can instantly see that smoke is starting to rise there, and charring the shells will bring incredible flavour. And what really is amazing about langoustines is the flavour that the shells can bring. That's what the value is in them, because you've only got a tiny bit. Look at the size of the thing. You're only eating that end bit, but all this top, if you throw that away, it's such a waste. It's all flavour. It's a little bit like making the stock. So these, once they're charred, are going to go straight into this once it's done. And that is starting to sound really good. So let's get these on. Getting those on there quickly. Lining them up like I haven't got any room, but I have got room for them all. Okay, awesome. They'll tick away, and we've got a little bit of smoke there, but we've got a trick in a minute. So just going to get this moving again. So that's starting to stick to the bottom of the pan now. Really starting to fizz, which is what we want. Lovely. Smells incredible. Right, now, as that's starting to stick, deglaze the pan with a little bit of white wine, probably about a glass. Whilst that fizzes, I'm just going to take 2 or 3 fresh tomatoes, three we're going to use, on this dirty board that's got all the, everything else has been on. It's not a problem because it's all going straight in there. So we're going to just go for some nice big fat chunks of fresh tomato, because I love that in a stew. So again, it's minimal effort, nice big chunks like this. Okay. So once that wine has cooked down and the alcohol's burnt away, don't worry, there's more alcohol in the bottle that we can drink afterwards. Once that's burnt down, or sorry, cooked down, that lovely red, golden, green colour there starting to come together. We nearly there, a little bit longer. We can tend to these langoustines, so I'm going to just give them a little turn over. And you can be a bit rough with them, but what really is going to get these things singing is that ingredient that everyone knows makes everything tasty, and that is some butter. So we're going to chuck some butter over these. Oops. And as soon as, I'm going to have to get these moving, because as soon as that drips onto the flames, you'll see we're going to get a whole load of smoke, and that is going to smoke these langoustines and make them incredibly tasty. Here we go, it's starting to happen. There comes the smoke. Buttery, smoky goodness. Just get them all in there. Yes. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Awesome. So now they're all coated in butter and the smoke. We only really wanted to get a little bit of heat into these because they're going to continue to cook in here. So that is cooked down now. I don't know if you can see, I'm going to move it out of the smoke, starting to see the edges. All that wine's cooked down. It's time for the tomatoes to go in. Fresh tomatoes in. Let them cook down a little bit. I don't want them to break down too much. I kind of want some fresh tomato in there. You don't want everything to be, this is a nice sort of light stew. It's not going to be like, it's not a stew where you're cooking it for hours and hours and everything falls apart. You want texture, you want those chunks of tomatoes to be giving you that kind of vibrant acidity that we look for with a fish dish. We'll just cook those down. Now in can go with the corn. Excuse my hands. The corn and the courgettes. And then finally, in a second, once they're worked in, there's your red, gold and green really singing now. Right, I'm going to pull these langoustines away from the heat now. I'm going to add these right at the end. Into this pan is going to go 1 tin of quality tomatoes. There we go, lovely. Mix that in, and just going to wait for that to come up. And then we're just going to finish it with a little bit of that fish stock that we used in the rice. We're going to let that cook down for a little bit longer, and then the langoustines will go into it, and the flavour from those shells will cook through for the final little bit. Just going to get that rocking. So now I'm going to talk you through cooking the fish. So we've got the red mullet and we've got the sea bass. I've got here some smoking chips. They're Scottish whiskey oak barrels. Whiskey and oak go so well with fish, amazing. I'm just going to put a few of those into this bowl. Now if I throw those on the fire, they're going to create flame and will burn away really quickly. So what we're going to do is going to use a little bit of this fish stock again. Fish stock's useful throughout this. I'm just going to wet them a little bit, and that will just help them to sort of not be quite so combustible in that fire. So let them just soak just for a minute. This is coming along nice. So we need to move fairly quickly. Now, a little trick here. All I've done is season these with salt. We're not messing around with fish. Fish is delicate. It doesn't need to mess around with. There's bags of flavour in there and in there. So we're just going to gently grill these. But people always, cooking fish on the barbecue, think, oh, it's going to stick, it's going to stick. Brilliant trick. All you need to do, take a towel and just dry the skin. So we've already salted them ages ago. All the moisture's come out. So they're seasoned anyway. But it's going to dry them like that. I'm just going to work through these, dry the skins, skin side up here, so there's no more moisture can get onto them. And if you just put them onto a hot grill dry, like that, you'll find, well, you'll see, they don't stick. And then what we're going to do is throw those smoking chips over the top, and we're going to put a cloche, which is one of these. You could just use a metal mixing bowl if you like, over the top with the smoke. So the smoke's going to roll around inside there over the top of the fish. The bottom will be crispy, the top will be smoky. Happy days. So just going to clean off these fish. Take a bit of time to dry it all, because basically the moisture hitting the grill will create almost like a glue, and that's what makes it stick. If you remove that moisture, you won't have your skin stick. It's a real great trick, that. And because we've soaked these chips, there's also, not only is the smoke going to come off there, but a little bit of steam. So we probably won't even need to turn these fish over to cook them. They'll just cook one side down with the cloche over them and be delicious. Okay, so we've cleaned off all the skin. It's all dry, it's face up. We've got these chips that have been soaking. So I'm just going to get rid of the excess water there, and then we're going to just throw those into the fire like so. Try not to burn your fingers. In a moment they'll start to create some smoke. Very quickly, skin side down. Going to get these loaded onto here, as close to put together as I can, because I need to try and get the cloche over them as well. Hopefully they should all fit under it. You see that smoke starting to rise. This is where we might need to just hope. I might leave that one off just in case I can't get it under the cloche. Perfect. So you can see that that smoke now is coming straight up into that cloche, and it will be making sure that those fish are getting a lick of that, but most of the cooking is coming from underneath. So the delicate bit on the top, which isn't skin, it will just be lovely and juicy, hopefully. Right, so we're going to get these langoustines now into this fish stew. Now they're a bit leggy and a bit of a pain, so I'm just going to work them into, move this off here, work everything together now in here. I'm going to add a little bit of fish stock. Ooh, take those bits of celery out. Just loosen that up again. It just got reduced a little bit too far. That's perfect. Right, get rid of those. Work these together. Could have done with a bigger pan, but there we go. That smoke's hurting my eyes, but I know that it's doing wonders for that fish. Okay. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, I'm just going to take some parsley, just take the stalks off the end, and then finally chop that. Okay, let's bring everything together. So you're just going to liven up this rice with a final splash of stock. Just do that on the table. The stock is still warm, the rice is still warm. It only needs a tiny bit just to be revitalised. Okay, we get that work together. There we go, you can see the steam still coming off that. Lovely seafood rice. Got our beautiful langoustine stew. This is going to be hit with some parsley. As well. And also we're going to go for a squeeze of lime over both. Just put that all over. Beautiful. And then check on this fish. Not too hot to touch. So you can see that's perfectly cooked on the top all the way through. But the beauty of this is that I'm just going to use my knife for this. These fillets will just lift away, just get underneath it from the barbecue, and you've got lovely crispy skin underneath. I'm just going to lift these fish off, then we're ready to plate up. Okay then, we're ready to plate up. Let's get on this. So start with the rice. Just going to load up some stodge. That's what we want. Then we're going to go in with this gorgeous, get a couple of langoustines in there. Excuse fingers. This is dirty cooking, as I said. Going to get in there and get all this juicy, dirty veg stew. Plenty of that to soak up the rice. Oops, I'm making splashes everywhere. You can tell I'm a home cook, can't you? Making a right mess of it. Okay, one more langoustine for luck. Sitting over the top there, because I love langoustines. And then just gonna pop on the skin side up, we're just gonna pop on a fillet of sea bass and a fillet of our red mullet. Wedge of lime, a little bit of parsley. So there we have it, Caribbean style fish stew with langoustines, sea bass and red mullet and spicy rice, all cooked on the Kadai alongside the River Severn for this amazing festival of imagination in this gorgeous, gorgeous part of the world. My stomping ground. I'm so pleased we've been here. Really, really excited to announce that we'll be doing a takeaway in the Gorge down in Coalbrookdale next weekend on Saturday the 26th, where you'll be able to come along and I'm going to be cooking a whole deer from this woodland right behind me and a couple of local lambs over fire with a load of sides, and you can get onto the website now and you can order, get involved. Can't wait to see you. I'm Shropshire Lad. Peace.